Fixing the eyes in other schools. Some schools maintain that the eyes should be fixed on the enemy's long sword. Some schools fix the eyes on the hands. Some fix the eyes on the face, and some fix the eyes on the feet, and so on. If you fix the eyes on these places, your spirit can become confused and your strategy thwarted. I will explain this in detail. Ball players do not fix their eyes on the ball, but by good play on the field they can perform well. When you become accustomed to something, you are not limited to the use of your eyes. People such as master musicians have the music score in front of their nose, or flourish swords in several ways when they have mastered the way. But this does not mean that they fix their eyes on these things specifically, or that they make pointless movements of the sword. It means that they can see naturally. In the way of strategy, when you have fought many times, you will easily be able to appraise the speed and position of the enemy's sword. In having mastery of the way, you will see the weight of his spirit. In strategy, fixing the eyes means gazing at the man's heart. In large-scale strategy, the area to watch is the enemy's strength. Perception and sight are the two methods of seeing. Perception consists of concentrating strongly on the enemy's spirit, observing the condition of the battlefield, fixing the gaze strongly, seeing the progress of the fight, and the changes of advantages. This is the sure way to win. In single combat, you must not fix the eyes on the details. As I said before, if you fix your eyes on details and neglect important things, your spirit will become bewildered, and victory will escape you. Research this principle well and train diligently. I like that he points out that perception and sight are the two methods of seeing. I've actually thought about this quite a bit. And one of the, I guess, here's the first time I realized this, here's the thought I had. You know, when you are growing up, you're learning different things as a kid, you know, the way you teach your kids, you point to things and say, that's blue. And so they look at it and they say, blue. And so then you label that in their minds as blue. But the thing about perception is that we don't know if blue looks the same to everybody. Because we're just pointing at something and saying that that is blue. But to someone else, that may look like red to them. But in their mind, they label it as blue. So it's all a matter of perception. And we don't know, and we'll never, well, maybe not never, but I don't know if we'll ever know if we are seeing the same things. I mean, maybe that accounts for people's preferences and colors. Maybe everybody's favorite color is actually the same color, but they are different because they're seeing it differently. Something to think about. I mean, it's kind of like I don't think there's much you can go other than thinking about it and kind of considering that. But I think it's an important thing to realize and consider, because it brings to mind, in my mind, it brings the point of perception, or the importance of perception, into the forefront of your mind, if you think about it. So I think that's what, so I mean, that's why perception is important. Perception is a way of seeing, but you have to understand how they're perceiving something to know what they're seeing, and thus to know what they're thinking. Use of the feet in other schools. There are various methods of using the feet: floating foot, jumping foot, springing foot, treading foot, crow's foot, and such nimble walking methods. From the point of view of my strategy, these are all unsatisfactory. I dislike floating foot because the feet always tend to float during the fight. The way must be trod firmly. Neither do I like jumping foot because it encourages the habit of jumping and a jumpy spirit. However much you jump, there is no real justification for it. So jumping is bad. Springing foot causes a springing spirit, which is indecisive. Treading foot is a waiting method, and I especially dislike it. Apart from these, there are various fast walking methods, such as crow's foot and so on. Sometimes, however, you may encounter the enemy on marshland, swampy ground, river valleys, stony ground, or narrow roads, in which situations you cannot jump or move the feet quickly. In my strategy, the footwork does not change. I always walk as I usually do in the street. You must never lose control of your feet. According to the enemy's rhythm, move fast or slowly, adjusting your body not too much and not too little. Carrying the feet is important also in large-scale strategy. This is because if you attack quickly and thoughtlessly without knowing the enemy's spirit, your rhythm will become deranged and you will not be able to win. Or if you advance too slowly, you will not be able to take advantage of the enemy's disorder. The opportunity to win will escape, and you will not be able to finish the fight quickly. You must win by seizing upon the enemy's disorder and derangement, and by not according him even a little hope of recovery. Practice this well. It's an interesting note about footwork. I mean, we have a fair amount of footwork in Kung Fu, and not everything we train in the school you are going to be able to do on like a rocky or muddy terrain, particularly with Chum-Kyu and that sort of thing. But there's ways around it. So there's different ways. What he's saying is that you don't want to get stuck. You don't want to get stuck in one of those ways because you have to know how to, but you still need to know the basics. Clearly he knows all the different types of foot or methods of using the feet. So he studied them. And I think an important point to make is that you have to study them. I mean, you have to have a foundation, right? You have to build off of something. You have to know the rules so that you can break the rules. Speed in other schools. Speed is not part of the true way of strategy. Speed implies that things seem fast or slow, according to whether or not they are in rhythm. Whatever the way, the master of strategy does not appear fast. Some people can walk as fast as 100 or 120 miles in a day, but this does not mean that they run continuously from morning till night. Unpracticed runners may seem to have been running all day, but their performance is poor. In the way of dance, accomplished performers can sing while dancing, but when beginners try this, they slow down, and their spirit becomes busy. The old pine tree melody beaten on a leather drum is tranquil, but when beginners try this, they slow down, and their spirit becomes busy. Very skillful people can manage a fast rhythm, but it is bad to beat hurriedly. If you try to beat too quickly, you will get out of time. Of course, slowness is bad. Really skillful people never get out of time and are always deliberate and never appear busy. From this example, the principle can be seen. That is very true in my experience as well. I'll tell you guys I'll give you guys an example. Let me finish reading this though. What is known as speed is especially bad in the way of strategy. The reason for this is that depending on the place, marsh or swamp, and so on, it may not be possible to move the body and legs together quickly. Still less will you be able to cut quickly if you have a long sword in this situation. If you try to cut quickly, as if using a fan or short sword, you will not actually cut even a little. You must appreciate this. In large-scale strategy also, a fast, busy spirit is undesirable. The spirit must be that of holding down a pillow. Then you will not be even a little late. When your opponent is hurrying recklessly, you must act contrarily and keep calm. You must not be influenced by the opponent. Train diligently to attain the spirit. So I like the point he made about what do you say, busy people, really skillful people never get out of time and are always deliberate and never appear busy. I've known some really busy people in my life, and people who are just very busy throughout their lives, and I've only met maybe two people who are on a level of busy that is, let's just say, that's ridiculous. And those two people have always appeared very relaxed, and they're kung fu people, have always appeared relaxed and not hurried at all. And yet they're very busy. And I think that kind of points to what he's saying here. And how do you teach someone that? Well, I think one way is to train kung fu. But I think you have to master kung fu to really do it. So, I don't know. That's something to think about and work on. And maybe to try to achieve yourself. Okay. Interior and surface in other schools. There is no interior nor surface in strategy. The artistic accomplishments usually claim inner meaning and secret tradition. An interior and gate. Hold on. There is no interior nor surface in strategy. The artistic accomplishments usually claim inner meaning and secret tradition. An interior and gate. But in combat, there is no such thing as fighting on the surface or cutting with the interior. When I teach my way, I first teach by training in techniques which are easy for the pupil to understand. A doctrine which is easy to understand. I gradually endeavor to explain the deep principle, points which it is hardly possible to comprehend, according to the pupil's progress. In any event, because the way to understanding is through experience, I do not speak of interior and gate. In this world, if you go into the mountains and decide to go deeper and yet deeper, instead you will emerge at the gate. Whatever the way, it has no interior, and it is sometimes a good thing to point out the gate. In strategy, we cannot say what is concealed and what is revealed. Accordingly, I dislike passing on my way through written pledges and regulations. Perceiving the ability of my pupils, I teach the direct way, remove the bad influence of other schools, and gradually introduce them to the true way of the warrior. The method of teaching my strategy is with a trustworthy spirit. You must train diligently. I've tried to record an outline of this strategy of other schools in the above 9 sections. I could now continue by giving a specific account of these schools one by one, from the gate to the interior, but I have intentionally not named the schools or their main points. The reason for this is that different branches of schools give different interpretations of the doctrines. Inasmuch as men's opinions differ, so there must be differing ideas on the same matter. Thus, no one man's conception is valid for any school. I have shown the general tendencies of other schools on 9 points. If we look at them from an honest point of viewpoint, we see that people always tend to like long swords or short swords and become concerned with strength in both large and small matters. You can see why I do not deal with the gates of other schools. In my Ichi school of the longsword, there is neither gate nor interior. There is no inner meaning in sword attitudes. You must simply keep your spirit true to realize the virtue of strategy. And that ends chapter 4, the Wind Book. So pretty interesting book. Pretty interesting last passage. A lot of his wordage reminds me of Bruce Lee and his thoughts about being formless and that sort of thing. But I don't think that Musashi negates the necessity of structure. I think his point in this last chapter was to say that the true way is figuring it out for yourself. And that's what you have to do in Kung Fu. I mean, everybody has their own Kung Fu. You have to figure out how your Kung Fu works for you. And your Sifu can help you with that. But really, it's on you to really develop your own Kung Fu. But you cannot ignore the principles, because the principles are what the knowledge is built off of. So that's what I took from that chapter. Anyways, it's a little bit shorter of an episode today, and next episode will be much shorter because chapter 5 is only a page long. But I wanted to say it's New Year's Day right now. It's New Year's Eve. I'm recording this late at night. It's 12:42 a.m. So New Year's has passed. So I've been sipping on some whiskey and Coke, and recording this podcast. So I want to wish everybody a happy New Year. I hope that everybody will be going over their new year, their previous year, and going over their objectives for this year, and we'll stick to them. I've got to say that I know 2020 has been tough for a lot of people. And you know, my heart goes out to those people that have been affected by the coronavirus, by the civil unrest, by everything that's gone on in the world this year. I mean, it really has been a crazy year. And it's weird for me to think about it because, honestly, in my life, it's of course it's had its effect, but I've been very lucky in that I've been able to work remotely, and so I didn't have the interruption or the catastrophes that some other people have faced, and none of my family members were affected by COVID, or at least they haven't been so far. Knock on wood. But But my heart goes out to those who have been affected by it. And the good news is that there's light at the end of the tunnel now, and I think that everybody kind of sees that, and everybody, I think, is feeling a bit better, even though things haven't gotten completely better yet, but they will. We know they will. So for anybody out there that's suffering, just stay strong and just keep working hard, keep training hard, and keep your chin up. Thanks for listening.